It's not. I was muted. So, hello everyone. We are here not for the Sembarum finale, but for a Night's Black Agents Dracula Dossier prep session, which is currently the game we are running on Saturdays. And we had a week off to rest, recover, and recuperate. I'm actually going to see if I can do a quick graphic behind me, as that will help me feel a little better for the extended episode. Let me see. No, not at all. It didn't work. That's fine. So, hey, Bowman. Good to see you. Let me lower the volume of this background music. So, I think it behooves us to talk about some of our goals for prep today, what we hope to accomplish, things of that nature, and then get into the source material and use the books to prep the game. To preface this is prep for the game Night's Black Agents, which is published by Pelgrane Press. If you're watching this video on YouTube, there will be links beneath this video to purchase those products. You can use the voucher code, which is sometimes in the comments, sometimes posted directly below us, to get 20% off of all Night's Black Agents Dracula Dossier products. This is the Dracula Dossier, which is the masterpiece of the game system. There was a lot of effort put into producing all the materials. It's a collection of multiple books, props, handouts, etc. to create an exciting and engaging play experience where the players are going up against Dracula himself and preventing his conspiracy and plot of overthrowing the world. Which is very dramatic. If you've played other game systems, it's similar to Queen of the Demon Web Pits, things like that, where you have a very large idea that the players get to engage with. Likewise, our music is the soundtrack Dust and Mirrors, which is the soundtrack for the game. Pelgrane creates excellent soundtracks for their games. Music composed by a variety of artists. Our intro video is composed by James Simple. So let's talk about what's going on, and let's start with what I'm going to call a character check-in. We are going to look at the characters that are in the campaign, and as we look at them, we're going to talk about sort of where they are at in our assessment, and what we can, how we can engage with each character to help keep them involved in the campaign and hit every touchstone. So, our characters are as follows. Let me do a quick check over here, and we are going to introduce the artwork for them. There we go. I have my annual archive. Let me view my thumbnails. You can't see this on your end. This is all back end. So, first character. We'll drag and drop. Antal. Antal is played by Sharang Biswas. That is Shady Antal. And Antal is currently struggling with the trauma of being a rogue agent. And so we're going to write this down. Needs a new solstice. Solstice is a game mechanic term. This is someone that can help him recover some of his stability. What something he needs as well is to reconcile misdeeds. I'll make this text a little larger so that you can see. That's good enough. So this character engaged in acts with the consent of the other players. I'll remind you. this character engaged in acts of torture and criminal behavior during the last session. It was dramatic, it was intense, it was led to the inclusion of a content warning on our video because it was an instance where the character was driven to that point. Now, we as players talked about it afterwards and how we'll handle that. And one of the decisions we made is to go less in that direction and more in the recovery mode while still introducing new threats. So, the Solstice should be a... I think it's Solus or Solus, not Solstice. Essentially, we need to come up with a way to recover, and I think one of the ways we're going to do that is we're going to have Margot, the academic, engage in a friendship with Antal and track him down. And I think reconciling the misdeeds is simply going to be talking about them or having flashbacks to them or overcoming them or being put in a situation where Antal can overcome. Our next character is Daquan, played by ProRestarter. Daquan needs to reconcile the murders. So Daquan, the jilted date, she's still sad. I could have danced all night. So Daquan needs to reconcile the acts of murder and the crimes committed in the past session. Daquan also needs to overcome the duality of their loyalty. So Daquan is working for two agencies. Daquan is both a rogue and a member of Edom. Edom being the opposition force that is working against our players trying to control Dracula. Eventually, we are going to have, most likely at the end of the next session, it drop that Daquan is working for the organization. From a prep perspective, we need to prepare our players to not feel so mad, to not get up and walk away, to not reject Daquan as not being one of their own, and we need to establish that perhaps Edom has leverage over Daquan, leverage that can be taken away. So this might be past allies, etc. It might be a debt that needs to be repaid. We'll figure it out. The next character that we will look at over this is the lovely and wonderful Jisoo. Jisoo has to reconcile the trauma of mesmerism. So we talk about mesmerism is the vampiric effect in the game of a vampire in a sign using this power over you. And it is not mind control. What happens is you are at a penalty when trying to act against the vampire or the vampiric force. Fanboy Ebolas, we are not, as the title says, doing the Embarm series finale. We are actually doing prep for the Dracula Dossier WebDM campaign. For the YouTube audience, that is chat interacting and engaging with us. So Jisoo needs to reconcile her trauma of the vampiric mesmerism. And we are not going to continue to explore the mesmerism storyline. What we are going to do is we're probably going to pivot to where Jisoo is resolved to focus on assisting her partner. Leslie. Jisoo also has the struggle of dealing with Antal's needs. So as you saw up there, Antal, played by Sharang, has been relying on Jisoo for a lot of support. Last character is T, played by Lily Sparks. So, T has to embrace the Shadow War against the vampires. Will possibly be betrayed because T has a lot of vampiric connections. They are going to assume that T is using her knowledge of the inner workings of the vampire conspiracy to aid the players, and she's probably going to get blowback for her use of her resources, her clubs, etc., to assist the players. And so let's dive a little deeper and take a look at what this looks like in game. So these are our players and what's going on. Let's insert a page break. We're also going to have some dangling threads that we need to overcome. So Antal needs a solace, needs to reconcile misdeeds. Daquan has actual murders that he committed. And there's things that here's the complexity. In a game like Dungeons & Dragons, you kill some kobolds and kobolds die. In a game like Night's Black Agents, you murder civilians in London, and there are police investigations. So, for Jisoo, she's going to be recovering from the vampiric mesmerism in a strong way, and then T, with swift and coming betrayal by former friends. I think a really fun one would be to bring Varut back, bring DM Steve, who was a guest star, and have Steve be turned and betray T. That's not off the table. So that's one that we can consider. Having the DM Steve approach. So, let's look at our next issues. So we're going to insert a page break. And if you recall, looking at this, the vampire problem. The players currently have a vampire in their custody, and they don't know what to do with her. Let us open Adobe Acrobat and bring up the book. The book. So we were playing an adventure out of the Edom Files, which is part of the campaign, for those of you following along at home. We adapted the adventure Blood Coda and set it in 2020 as opposed to 1971. And that is the story of a ballet company that has a vampire among them attempting to investigate. So let's take a look at Ileana Dragoy. So they have to figure out what they will do with her. She's very powerful. She's currently overpowered by the party. And the adventure offers some advice on how they can handle this. So let's look at the end. So we are going to take a screenshot and bring it into our notes. We'll read this out loud, so we're going to copy this. As always, I like to fill up my notes. So, capture or kill. Let players decide what means they'll use to neutralize Ileana. Ask what kind of instructions the agents have been given in the past regarding this kind of vampiric presence. So, first step is ask players for ideas. And we'll kind of let them create the fiction of how they want to handle it. Then capture. Edom always needs more data about vampires. A strong young assign would be tremendous fun for Edom scientists. So Ileana is, a bride of Dracula. On the other hand, catching a vampire is a lot trickier than killing one. You'll either need to lure her in some kind of trap or cage, or beat her within -11 health of her life and transport her quickly before she wakes up. Edom itself is equipped to keep her indefinitely. Taking her alive won't solve the problem of her Renfields. So, let's take a look. So, as players for ideas, Edom will contact Daquan. And then the opposition forces, Dracula gonna be pissed. So let us double check in Dracula's Vampiramid how he might respond to these shenanigans. So we're going to move from the Edom files into the Director's Handbook. Let me fit. And let's look at Dracula's Vampiramid. And this will be fairly high up on it. That's the Conspiramid, but we need to look at the Vampiramid. And this is probably a level 5, not a level 4. So let's go up to level 5. So Cloak and Dagger. We are going to make a decision how we want to handle this. And it might be that we're also going to grab a few different things. So let's take a look at some of our options for Dracula's retaliation. And this is sort of going to demonstrate the flow that we need to follow. So we'll go into the Director's Handbook. So we want row 5. And part of this might... Alright. So... Row 5. Envelopment. Dracula activates some heretofore underused or unexplored portion of his conspiramid, the CIA, the Slovakian Mafia, a Russian warlord, or a Chinese financier. He sends the organization after the agents to make... A good one would be the Korean vampires that T knows. Their attacks in their own distinctive métier. His goal is to throw the agents off balance, to make them turtle up so he can hunt them down and take them out. Cloak. Dracula goes completely invisible, dropping off even Edom's grid. He picks one place in his network where he is at his most powerful, likely his castle, and waits there for the agents to find him. That is literally what Dracula is going to do. While the agents flail around, his minions and Edom bleed them. A long hunt is a tiring one. So... Dracula himself is going to go to his castle, and I think, as we look at number 4, he's going to get them to essentially raid Edom. Now, speaking of Edom, they have their own idea. Edom is trying to get a hold of Dracula's bride. So I think what Edom's going to do is, in this situation, they would attempt to kill the agents or vampirize them. So let's take a look. They might offer to recruit them. This is intense, though, because... So Edom sends its vampire to eliminate the troublesome agent. It may set up this attack with another targeted earthquake. Wow. Yeah, haven't invited me into your home? I'll knock it down. If the agents... Hi, Klaus. If the agents are attempting to escape with the vampire, that's the other thing. I think that's really the thing. I think Edom's going to go as hard as it can at capturing this vampire from them. So... yeah, we're going to have to see what happens. I think Edom's going to try to get a hold of both the vampire, Ileana, and Ileana is just an assign. So I have some notes here from my Session 7 prep. And essentially, we didn't get to anything that, we didn't get to any of the, Belgium points, but the clues are going to point to Edom. They're going to have to go to the Proserpine. Proserpine. So here's Dracula. And let's do that. So, players must figure out what to do with the vampire. As it stands, they can't keep her. So, an assign is essentially a vampiric thrall that a vampire takes power over. They do not have all the features and functionality of a full vampire, but they have many of the same abilities. And we can bring up where it talks about that in the book. So, you find them in the Linea vampires in the default version of the book, and I will bring up where it talks about the assign, which is worth doing to make sure that we get it correct. So, all right. Boom. Similar, yes. So, Children of the Dragon. So, here we go. Children of the Dragon. The Dragon Noir. So, this is assuming the satanic origin. That's the base myth, you can tell by the So if you remember, the agents went to the Scholomance, which is the Devil's School, which has the ritual to become a vampire. We're treating vampires more like mutants and aliens and not actually something to do with the Christian religion. But, so Vlad the Impaler became Dracula, and he has descendants, which are essentially the Linea Dracula, the lineage of the son of the dragon. So vampires retain human hunger and sins, but do not eat, drink, or breathe. They can create new vampires, but such assigns are less powerful and cannot turn others. By long habit, the Linea usually only turn their brides or most faithful retainers. So that is the Linea vampires in vampiric assign. This is a spouse or servant turned into a vampire by one of the Linea Dracula. As a general rule, assigns cast no shadow. During our game, you'll notice Ileana cast no shadow. You can create alien vampires, etc. But, so Ileana is an assign. In fact, she is one of Dracula's assigns. She is actually a bride of Dracula. So, we'll say the vampiric assign. Edom is gonna come after her full force. I really think the players are going to be in a situation where they're going to question her, they're going to interrogate her, they're going to get a lot of information, and they're probably going to have to eliminate her. Because she will betray them and she will turn on them. They might let her go and see what happens. If they let her go, Edom is going to capture her. She might make it back to Romania. She was trying to make it to a castle in Turkey, where she can recover. So this opens up. Essentially, they're gonna have to find a place to put her. Like, they're not gonna be able to get her a passport or trust her. Like, that it's too much of a liability. We'll figure out what they do, though. Like, they might be able to keep her in stasis. If they could get her to Munich, Germany, there is literally a coffin they could put her in. There's the sealed coffin in the Dead House, which is a location they've talked about and haven't gone to yet. So that's interesting. So the vampiric problem is, they can. We'll put some options. Kill her. Send her back to Turkey. Send her to Edom. So they can send her to the Proserpine. Or they can send her to Turkey, which is where her castle is. Or they can kill her. Those are essentially their three options. They could try to keep traveling with her. She'll probably end up murdering them in their sleep. Literally, that is what will happen. Not to mention, Edom will find them and come in full force trying to take hold of her. And there would probably be like 5 jacks, a duke, and some more muscle. If Dracula finds out they're running around with her, he will probably try to take her back as well using Quincy Morris. Quincy Morris is a werewolf leading members of the Romanian mafia as sort of a paramilitary group. That's why I love this game. It's very intricate and interesting, and you know, we have a lot of options, so we will see what they do with this. But it is high up on the Van Pyramid, so Dracula's going to go into hiding into his castle, setting up what we would refer to as the capstone of the campaign. They'll go to Castle Dracula. Dracula will flee to Dracula's mill. After the big showdown at the mill, Dracula will descend into his tomb, and then they'll have to murder him there. It's not really murder at that point. They're purging the world of him. Next step. I actually wish my background was working. I think I only have my Here's what we can do. Eh. And voila. Sorry, I had to give me a background. And I know we can still see a little bit of the green screen, but whatevs. Alright. So I think that's going to be the vampire problem. Information she can give them is... This is what she'll BART. Information she has. Dracula's goals. Location of Dracula's castle. What's in the dead house? That's about it. You know, Dracula's organization structure, who in Edom is most dangerous. So those are some things that she would have. Dracula's castle is located at Castle Bran in Romania. The dead house contains a sealed coffin, which has Dracula's mutant son, Orlok. Dracula's organization structure relies on the Ruvari Gigani, led by Quincy Morris, who is a literal character in the novel Dracula, who has become an immortal werewolf. The Dukes are the most dangerous parts of Edom, but the scientists in the Proserpine are the one things they fear. Dracula's goal is to conquer England and London and eventually the world, and is willing to use political powers and position to manipulate that control. The Romanian soil is required for them to sleep. So that sort of answers things she would know. And then it's kind of, if they let her go, she will go to Turkey, but she will also put everyone in Romania on high alert that hell is coming, essentially. So our next thing is Brussels. We have our Brussels prep. So let's talk about this. So let's insert our next break. So let's add some artwork that'll be useful. Oh, this is adorable. I have to agree to some terms. So, there's a cathedral. This is where they're going. Essentially, going to Mechlin Cathedral. We'll sort of outline the events that'll happen. Investigating the illegal vampire hunting trade. So there's a religious organization, and at this organization, they are essentially oh, here's some other great artwork. Like this is very, 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 very beautiful. There is much artwork. All of this I'm licensing. By the way, I have legal rights to use this artwork. So we have this Ansel. We essentially have a very beautiful, ornate cathedral. And it is under the control of the conspiracy now. Largely. There's a mix. So there's... Dracula has minions in the cathedral. They corrupted enough hosts, which is an emblem from the sacrament, the religious sacrament. They've corrupted enough of them over a century. Dracula got wise to what they were making there and sent agents to infest and take over aspects of it. There are things they can learn there and people they can talk to. The next thing that they can do is, if we look on page 124 of the Director's Handbook, bring it back over here. This is him. Let's paste him in. Hopkins. That's not Hopkins. We made a decision. Hopkins has been captured. So they are reading the novel Dracula, and within the novel there are a bunch of notes of individuals who are writing in the novel. And as you look at the novel and the individuals who are writing in it, one of them has the codename Hopkins. This individual is a potential Hopkins, but will actually point them to the correct one. The correct Hopkins is the GCHQ Romania desk analyst. She's Hopkins. She's been captured. She is currently in the HMS Proserpine, which is like an oil rig offshore. Tarber has information about that, and let's get all of his information. Oliver Tate is Hopkins' boyfriend, but let's go back to 124, where we have Tarber. And some of the things he has. So he has files on all sorts of things. I mean, so I'm struggling with this book at the moment, as it's not behaving. All right. So we will paste beneath him what he has. So Tarber has files, even active surveillance on Al-Qaeda, the Romanian Mafia, the arms dealer, the dissident, that's someone they've met, the Syrian general, the human rights activist. He works with the GCHQ Romania desk analyst, that is Hopkins, the MI5 agent. We will separate this. He can dig up details on the Balkan effort. This is Mehmet Luksay there, and the seismologist. He worked briefly or inherited the case files from Cushing, who was the previous note taker. And might even know about some of the other things. Listing all those contacts was positively exhausting for him. He's going to slope off to the Korea Club. His father's a member, of course, for a fortifying drink. So that'll introduce the Korea Club. So here are some things that we know in Brussels. He's there attempting to achieve information from the asset runner, or the lamplighter. So there's a dead letter drop operation going on. He is going to dump a ton of clues. So what we need to do is we need to compile a list of all the clues that these folks have. And he's going to be a gold mine of information that they can hit up. And this is where they can keep the information coming. Guide clues to set up a raid on the HMS Proserpine and or Dracula's castle. So on 115 is the desk analyst. And she is, Cassandra Irving is Hopkins. So we will drop, she's the default Hopkins, the book assumes. And so let's get some information. And we've decided that she's captured. Edom has her. So Cassandra's a possible candidate for the role of Hopkins. So she works for an intelligence agency. She works with this shady individual, Tarver. The signs are going to point that she has been captured by Edom. Why did Edom want to capture her? She's the one who leaked the entire Dracula dossier, written above my head, in the first place. So she let the vampire conspiracy become known to the outsiders and everything that Edom was up to. They managed to catch hold of her. And she will definitely be... she's going to give up the identities of the player characters. And we're going to assume that she already gave up Olivia Liu. So this is where we're going to go. Edom has its own vampire. Named for the Queen of the Underworld. Dun dun dun. So, I think the players have begun to identify the HMS Proserpine. There's a few things in here that we are going to take first. First, the big shot, then the maps. So we will snip each one individually. But essentially, these are great maps, by the way, created created by the sister company. But essentially, this is warm. This is Operation Edom's Vampire Containment Facility. This is definitely going to be warm. It's an active Black Ops base. So I need to figure out who's in charge of it right now. The lamplighter is going to know about it, and he's there. They met the asset runner, so there's going to be people there that know about it. They have some documents pointing to it that they managed to get from Gibraltar. So it's going to have a lot of information. It's not going to be their headquarters. It will for sure have the location of Castle Dracula. And Orlok might be in there. So we need to figure out the agents currently aren't captured, so we're going to have to treat this. This is the closest thing we're going to have to a dungeon delve. Outside of Castle Dracula, I think. So this is good. So getting in. This is an investigative RPG. Getting clues and hints. It could be that Ileana's sister, or another bride, like Lucy Westerna or something like that, is being held in the Proserpine as well. Let's look for Lucy. Boop. Turned her into a vampire. So it could be that Lucy's there. We'll figure it out. Maybe. It's hard to tell. Let me see if I can find the sealed coffin. Because it's probably better. So what's inside? Yeah, it could definitely be Lucy Westerna. We could have Orlok in there, but we could also have Lucy. We'll decide. Hopkins has notes. The old one. So it's going to be getting clues and hits. getting in. So let's do a quick breakdown, and we'll do this. Getting clues and hints. So first things first. So we are going to just snip right out of the book the following. We are going to grab this, and we are going to paste it into our notes. Get the intel out of cast, so Tarber, etc. will have it. Find one of the Edom personnel. I think they've already looked at the satellite imagery. Jisoo did. They've learned that it's there. Then, what information will get there? They have to take a boat out there or hijack a helicopter. Next, let's grab a map. Of all 3 layers. I have totally clicked the wrong thing. Let's add the decks. And what we'll probably do, and it will be outside of the scope of this broadcast, but I'm going to go through and figure out what clues are on each level and what misdirection is on each level. This is a good... Yeah, Daquan has the coordinates for it. One, Daquan already knows where it is. Daquan is Edom. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's gonna... The best part's gonna be Daquan pretending like he's very skilled in just finding all these clues. And it turns out that it's, you know... Oh, I'm just so wise, you know. If you were as good an agent as me, we would be able to find everything. Okay, we have our 3 levels. Now let's double check to see what the book says. Vampire's a prisoner. So, yeah, this is essentially, this is where they're keeping the... So, they need to get here, get Hopkins, and get out, so... with Sterna Brooch. Oh, there it is. Small brooch of polished black stone and a simple silver setting. The brooch has no markings or inscription, although the silver pin carries microscopic traces of blood. This brooch was found lying in the sand by Lucy Westerno while walking the shores at Whitby. She wore the brooch during her initial contact with Count Dracula. The brooch was not recorded as being among her belongings when Arthur Holmwood took possession of the Westerna estate. It must have been stolen when Dracula broke in, or buried with her in Kingstead Cemetery. Becomes a beacon to vampires. Ooh. Interesting. So... that could be an interesting one to play with. Some things they'll find. Location of Castle Dracula, Lucy Westerna, Edam's plans to control Dracula. So this is a lot so far. So when we think about the pacing, they're going to need to deal with the vampire. That's first and foremost. We'll walk back through what we've done. So Antal needs to find a new Solus. It'd be great if Antal's Solus becomes a vampire bride and reconcile misdeeds. Daquan is going to have to face the murders and overcome their duality. Jisoo has to overcome the mesmerism. Whoops. Overcome threats to Colette, her partner. Colette could even be Cassandra. We could just replace Cassandra with Colette and add that character connection, which is something that I would do. That would mean Colette was Hopkins, which I think is not fair. So we won't do that. I think Colette would be used as leverage. I do need to figure out the Hound. How to handle the Hound. See, I want to bring in a guest star, but I don't want the guest star to be... I don't want them to sit around and not have anything to do all session. They're going to have to figure out what to do with the vampire. And for T, I think T is going to end up being betrayed. I'd love to bring Varut back, DM Steve, and have DM Steve turn traitor on them. Steve's such a nice guy, though. That's a big ask. Shout out to the Asians Represent podcast and everything DM Steve and Daniel Kwan do. So, the players are going to have to figure out what to do with Ileana. Edam's going to start their pursuit. They have either got to kill the vampire, send her back to Turkey, or turn her over to Edam. If they turn her over to Edam, she'll be taken to the Proserpine or the Romanian CIA Blacklight facility. Then they need to figure out what information she has before they make that decision. She'll know what Dracula's up to, how his organization's structured, who in Edam is most dangerous, and what's in the dead house as well, and the location of Dracula's castle. Part of the reason I'm setting up multiple locations that have, here's how you get to Dracula's castle, either hidden in the HMS Proserpine, there's going to be agents that know. It'll seem like everybody knows. That's one of those things a lot of people would know that the characters would interact with. But are they going to ask the question is the next step. They're going to need to find Hopkins. Delete that. Tarber knows where Hopkins is. So there's going to be a few characters here. They're going to be Edam characters that are essentially willing to direct them to Proserpine. But they might not. So let's talk about what ifs. This is kind of our conclusion. What if they don't want to save Hopkins? There are a lot of leads and a lot of heat. Bring the heat on them and attack Solace and Safety. What if they go to Cushing, see Cushing's notes? JQ Harker, see Harker's notes. So they have these other leads. Dead House, run Orlok scenario. So we've already prepped all those events before, but I just need to have some what ifs. What if they end up going off in these other directions? What if they map someplace else? We've got a pretty good plan. So I think this is good for our prep today. The main things that happen, you know, we've sketched out 17 pages. So we had a week off, so I want to do a character check-in. I want to identify the vampire problem. We're actually going to start 30 minutes late on Saturday. But it should be a good game. And we'll figure out what we do with Ileana getting to Brussels, because Sharong has said that they are going to investigate the old vampire hunting trade. They have clues that point to it, and that's where they want to go next. That's going to open up a whole can of worms when they meet Tarber, because Tarber is essentially going to be a major chunk of information. In fact, Tarber could be Hopkins. Like, that is one option in the game that we've discussed. I think it's more interesting to send them on the rescue mission to actually get Hopkins. If we need to call an audible, though, and it doesn't look like they're going to go to the Proserpine and things are dragging on, we can always flip that dial and make Tarber Hopkins and cause a shootout in the cathedral, so to speak. Turn vampires on them, etc. I think a raid on the Proserpine oil rig would be a good one. So, alright everyone, thank you for watching this week. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to drop the voucher codes in chat. This is the voucher code. It's good till August 31st. Get you 20% off any Nice Black Agents products. The campaign is the Dracula Dossier, which is a highly improvisational collaborative campaign by Pelgrane Press, written and designed by Kenneth Haidt. And the game we are playing is Nice Black Agents, which is powered by the Gumshoe system. Check it out in the links below the video on YouTube and in chat. Likewise, the soundtrack is Dust and Mirrors. And we appreciate Pelgrane allowing us to use the music with license. So, again, thank you all for coming out. Have an excellent evening and time. Catch you on the flip side. Do catch us live on Saturday on twitch.tv/webdm or on YouTube at WebDM Plays. Adios.